the Milwaukee Bucks are still ranking very poorly in some key areas. We have a crazy Giannis trade we're going to get into. KPJ's comeback. What does that mean for Ryan Rollins? And also looking forward to the Bucks' next matchup. All that and more on today's episode of Bucks Latest, presented by FanArch. As always, I'm your host Dean Simon. And before we get into everything, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe. We're still on the road to 2,000 subs, so if that's a journey you feel compelled to join, please consider doing so and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future Milwaukee Bucks updates. All right, so first things first, the Bucks are 10-15 through their first 25 games of the 25-26 NBA season. Of course, it's just been filled with controversy and drama, as you would expect, or as we didn't necessarily expect, but if the Bucks were to have started out poorly, then you could have expected it, and that has certainly been the case and more throughout the beginning stages of the 25-26 season. And I just thought that maybe we'd check in a little bit after this 25 game start. We will look at the Bucks team stat ranks again throughout the first 25 games compared to the rest of the field. And first things first, I wanted to mention that the Milwaukee Bucks are bottom 10 in scoring with 115.1 in the points department. That's number 20. But in terms of field goal percentage, number 4 in the entire NBA at 49.1%. How do you figure? But also, if you look at the field goal attempts, what is that? Number 26? Number 27, sorry, 86.2. So taking the least or close to the least amount of field goal attempts, but they're connecting on them. So I guess that's how they're staying in some of these games. In terms of 3-point percentage, though, number 1 in the entire NBA. Can you tell me how a team that's shooting 41% from 3 as a collective is 10-15, regardless of if Giannis is in the lineup, if Miles Turner is playing well, if Ryan Rollins is having a leap, or if he isn't? This is ridiculous. 41% from 3 leads to a 10-15 record. And the one thing, and this has become a central part of this season, and it's something that I'll keep going back to over and over again until this problem is fixed, is that the Milwaukee Bucks, in terms of three-pointers made, they are number 3 in the NBA at 15.5, but in terms of attempts, they are 12 at 37.9. Hey, Doc Rivers, tell your basketball team to shoot more threes. I don't care if they're a little bit contested or if they're a little bit off balance. I still trust in the personnel, the three-point shooting personnel of this team to knock those shots down. If there's anything that these guys have proven, is that they can knock down both the easiest and some pretty difficult catch and shoot looks, off the dribble 3-point looks. And I'm looking at AJ Green. Gary Trent Jr. hasn't been very hot so far this season, and that's something we got into last episode. Ryan Rollins has been sensational. Kevin Porter Jr. has been sensational since coming back from injury, something we'll get into. But man, the Bucks just rank too high in too many key categories for them to be this terrible. And this is something that I will hang my hat on as the season goes on. In terms of free throws attempted, let's see where the Bucks rank. Oh yeah, number 29 in the NBA. Actually, a little bit of a ways up from the last time that we checked in on these team stats. There are 21 free throw attempts per game, which is about 2.5 more than the Boston Celtics, who are at number 30. But in terms of free throw percentage, dead last by a country mile still, up to 71.4% free throw shooting, which again is actually an improvement since the last time that we talked about this. Oh boy, what is going on here? In terms of rebounding, dead last in the NBA as well, 39.4 rebounds per game. If you're an NBA team that doesn't average 40 plus rebounds per game, you are considered a laughingstock, and you bet that that's what the Milwaukee Bucks are being categorized as right now, or what you could categorize them as. Blocks, the last thing that I want to look at here, or actually no, turnovers we can look at as well. Number 12 in turnovers, which is pretty awesome. Number 10 in assists. In steals, where are the Milwaukee Bucks? Number 19. But in blocks, for a team that has Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, he's missed so much time already to begin this season, that actually his streak of first team All NBA selections is probably going to end at 7. I mean, I don't want to be on the pessimistic side of things, but in terms of the games played, it looks like Giannis might not reach that 65 game threshold. But point stands, in terms of blocks per game, a team with Giannis and Miles Turner on it is number 20, is bottom 10 in the NBA in blocks per game. How do you figure? So this is where we're at in terms of this season, and I really don't know what to make of this Bucks team. Well, actually, I do know what to make of it. Shoot more threes, grab more boards, play more inspired defense, and really that's about it. Whether Giannis is on the floor or he's not, rebounding is something that the Bucks can control, even though their personnel is led by Miles Turner, who's probably the worst rebounding center in the NBA that actually has a prominent role within his team that plays a heavy load of minutes. And of course, the guy behind him is Jericho Sims, but that doesn't excuse effort and that this team could be gang rebounding and putting in that collective effort to be boxing out. Looking at the Bobby Portises of the world, though he has kind of stepped it up a little bit as of recently. But in terms of collective boxing out and just overall energy levels, these are things that the Bucks can control. Again, whether Giannis is on the floor or not. And actually, something that I wanted to mention here, it's not one of my categories, but it's a bit of news that came out just recently, is that the Bucks or Giannis held meetings with some of the Bucks players, basically telling them to block out the outside noise and not let it affect them. Which I just don't really understand because we've talked about Giannis not necessarily being a guy that's creating drama, unnecessarily, or that he's doing this intentionally, but you create and stir all of this drama and then you tell your teammates don't focus on that drama that I just created. It's going to blow over. Just keep your heads down and keep grinding. You're the one that is creating all of this, media fanfare and the whole trade saga and everything that's you're doing. So, you either keep that stuff behind closed doors, don't give Shams Charania a chance to get that tweet out saying that Giannis has talked to the front office about his future with the team. Don't let that information slip through, or just keep that stuff silent, or just more to a consolidated group. Don't let that kind of update slip out and then go and tell your teammates, don't worry about it, that's just noise. But nobody knows really if it is just noise or not, because again, it's your doing, and it's completely reasonable for you at this point to be requesting a trade, but just don't keep trying to go back and forth on what you really want to do. If you want to request a trade at this point, 25 games into the year, the Bucks are 10 and 15, not looking too great, request that trade. And it's just, I hate that this has become the big detrimental thing for the rest of the team. Not saying that Giannis is like a locker room cancer or anything, or that he's always been doing this kind of thing. But at this point in the year, the guys are trying to focus, hopefully, on winning basketball games. And to this point, it seems as though the Giannis drama has clouded everything unnecessarily. And with Giannis just saying, don't pay attention to it, that does nothing. That serves the team in no capacity. But anyways, we're going to finally move on to a Giannis Antetokounmpo Houston Rockets trade proposal that I came across from Yahoo Sports. That is pretty interesting, and it's probably the biggest haul that the Bucks could get for Giannis. So of course, this is very hopeful. The Rockets would probably not consider doing a move of this nature. If anything, they would choose a different guy to headline the trade. But with that being said, this deal from Yahoo Sports is Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jericho Sims, Amir Coffey, and Thanasis headed to Houston in exchange for Amen Thompson, Reed Shepard, Fred VanVleet, Steven Adams, Tari Eason, and 2 first-round picks, which, of course, that's lacking in the draft capital department. You would want to recoup more draft assets than that. But it is heavily made up for in the fact that you're getting Amen Thompson, Reed Shepard, and Tari Eason, and even Steven Adams in the present to help with that rebounding. Of course, Steven Adams has helped the Houston Rockets become one of the best rebounding and offensive rebounding teams specifically in the history of basketball. So getting a guy like Steven Adams on the team in the very, very short term would be a massive, a massive pickup. Of course, he's not the headliner of this trade. I don't really know why I'm spending so much time on him. But Amen Thompson, so many guys in NBA media have talked about him as if he is just, no one knows his potential, that it's completely untapped to this point, that we've seen flashes, we've seen things, but even through this point in time, we don't even know what Amen Thompson's real ceiling is going to be. And that's the reason why you would want him, of course, in this deal, aside from Alperen Şengün, who, of course, the Houston Rockets would be more likely to throw in a trade like this, or at least you would imagine. Because again, Amen Thompson, two-way potential. He has the potential really to win. Honestly, I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that at some point in his career, he could take home multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards, which is completely unheard of for a guard. And honestly, I don't know if a guard has ever done that. Maybe I would have to fact check a little bit, but I don't believe a guard has ever won multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. But if there is a guy even in the Victor Wembanyama timeline, where he's probably going to be winning that award for the next decade straight, Amen Thompson is the guy to do it with his insane athleticism, his IQ. He's able to read everything at such a high rate. He's got a computer chip in his head. Yeah, again, great IQ, leaping ability off the charts, just um, everything that you want in a young, athletic guard slash wing that could captain the offense for you, but also just take it straight to the rim and, see what happens from there. Similarly to Giannis, even though Amen Thompson and Giannis, of course, are extremely, vastly different players, he's also a guy that's made for sort of a drive and kick offense, even though that's not necessarily what he has in Houston. Amen Thompson coming onto this Bucks team, if AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr., Torian Prince, KPJ, all the guys are still there, he is a guy that would heavily benefit from a drive and kick style offense where you're surrounding him with some of the best three-point shooting talent in the NBA. And of course, you're getting Reed Shepard, who has really started to turn it on this year after a very rough start. But Reed Shepard looks more in control than ever. And I've made a video or a TikTok or something about him on one of my personal accounts. But Reed Shepard, to me, I've said it before, is probably the worst best defender that I've ever seen in my life. Just because in a one-on-one matchup, he is really barbecue chicken because of his physical limitations. But as an off-ball defender, kind of a free safety of sorts, and a guy that can just come up from behind, poke the ball out, and get going in transition, he is excellent. One of the best off-ball kind of roaming defenders that I've ever seen. And I really don't think that's crazy to say. So Reed Shepard also has great two-way potential, again, despite being a lot smaller of a guard. And of course, was the best three-point shooter by a country mile in his draft class, and has potential to be the best three-point shooter in the NBA, at least from an off-the-dribble standpoint, going forward into his career as he continues to progress. So I don't really think that Amen Thompson to this point would be the guy that the Rockets throw in this trade. You would think that it would be Şengün, or at least if they had to choose between one of the two, it would be Şengün. But if anything, you get Alperen Şengün in this kind of deal. His peak, essentially, we've kind of already seen what he can do to a degree, or when he's looking at his best. But he's essentially Nikola Jokic with more explosive athleticism, which is very, very exciting, of course, for the Houston Rockets. But if he were to be dealt to any team, I would like to certainly watch him as a Milwaukee Buck. Of course, though, this trade probably not looking too great from the draft capital perspective. But again, are you willing to look past that if you were to receive Amen Thompson, Reed Shepard, Tari Eason, who I haven't even talked about, who's also another phenomenal wing defender that they have, just their seemingly endless stockpile of those kinds of guys. But would you look past the draft capital, or lack thereof, for those guys? And honestly, in my opinion, I think yes. If you're able to have the Rockets dangle Amen Thompson in any kind of trade imaginable for Giannis, you just take it, no questions asked, because he is the main piece that you're trying to get from Houston. If they mention his name once and are seeming even the slightest bit willing to part ways with him, you go for it and you negotiate that, because that's the true centerpiece of a Giannis deal, or at least a very worthy one if Giannis were to ever be traded. And moving forward, Kevin Porter Jr. has been on an absolute tear since returning to the lineup, and it's worth it to say, how will the Milwaukee Bucks navigate this? The fact that Ryan Rollins has jumped out as probably the front runner for most improved player in the NBA. Of course, it's very tight, or that it's going to be a very tight race for this award, probably the most contested that this award race has ever been for this award ever. But KPJ, since returning to the lineup, I'll just throw a couple of things at you. So the past four games, 30, 26, 20, 32, though he did have a game where he had 7 turnovers, another with 4 turnovers. He has been absolutely phenomenal and shooting the lights out for the season so far. 22 points, 6 assists, I'll round up to 4 rebounds, 56, 62, 89 splits. Absolutely ridiculous for a 69.5% effective field goal percentage. And I hate to say it's a broad oversimplification to say, oh man, what are the Bucks gonna do? Are they gonna use KPJ more often and kind of push Ryan Rollins to the side because they want to win now? Or do they want to just focus on Ryan Rollins and his development? Um, it's a vast, broad oversimplification to say, well, the Bucks will just focus more on KPJ if they want to win now, and more on Ryan Rollins if they want to win in the future. But that's really what it comes down to, even though Ryan Rollins was putting up the kind of production that was leading to wins. Of course, you remember the several fantastic games that he's had throughout this year, but probably none bigger than the game he had against the Golden State Warriors when he broke his career high for the first time in scoring. Ryan Rollins has had killer games where he has led the Bucks to tight victories, especially even with Giannis out of the fold. So it really it makes you wonder in a moment where the Giannis trade saga is at the biggest heights that it's ever seen. It's reaching the biggest fever pitch that we've ever been at. Would the Bucks consider letting KPJ ride out the next couple of games, maybe the next 10, 15 games or so, see if he can keep up this kind of output, maybe not the same efficiency because you can't expect him to shoot 62% from 3 on high volume for, you know, half of an NBA season. It's just not feasible. But if you let KPJ continue to play somewhat at this level, if he proves to be a fringe all-star, maybe he's a guy that you dangle in trade talks unless he is contributing heavily to the Bucks turning this around, even with Giannis out of the fold. And let's say they get back to 500, or maybe they're 3 to 5 games above 500 by that point. Maybe you don't let him go because he's that valuable to your team. But if KPJ is putting up those kinds of individual stats and the Bucks are still 5 games below 500 or 7 games below 500, and it seems like there's no way out, maybe the Bucks can dangle KPJ on the trade market. Of course, not the desired outcome, in my opinion. It's I want to keep KPJ in a Bucks jersey, especially on the deal that he's on. But you gotta wonder if John Horst is going to be the most desperate that he's ever been to try and make something work in terms of putting together a trade for another star somehow, even though the money, it won't make sense and there's probably not many avenues to do so. If John Horst is looking at every part of this roster and trying to extract as much value out of it as possible, would he consider a KPJ trade and then just letting Ryan Rollins continue to man the starting point guard responsibilities and now he can handle it fully? It remains to be seen. I don't think personally that that kind of thing is going to happen, unless, again, unless the Bucks have reached, unless it reached an ultimate fever pitch where Giannis is essentially 1 and 3/4 steps out of the door, and the Bucks need to pull off some kind of massive move to entice him to stay somewhat. And if KPJ isn't contributing to winning at that point, maybe he's a guy that the Bucks look to. Again, not saying that I want him to be traded or that he's going to get traded. I'm just trying to think from the perspective of the Bucks front office, are they going to try to extract any and all kinds of value out of their guys and kind of hold the rest of this first half of the season as kind of an audition for other teams that are looking to kind of pry away great players from the Bucks? Again, that remains to be seen. But coming up, the Boston Celtics and Jaylen Brown, who have proved to still be somewhat of a formidable opponent in the Eastern Conference, even with Jason Tatum out. Jaylen Brown has kind of began to backpack in another sort of ways for the Boston Celtics. Of course, against the Knicks, he had a what was it, an 18-point second quarter, and I think he finished the game with 40 plus and led them to a victory over the Knicks in pretty dominant fashion. And again, with Jason Tatum out, he's really their only go-to scorer. Derek White has stepped things up for the Celtics as of recent, and that's going to be a guy that the Bucks perimeter defenders, more like AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., he's going to be a guy that the Bucks have to watch because his release is so quick and it feels like he just gets it off in a split second. And AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr. and anybody that's guarding Derek White, they have to get a hand up. Oh my goodness, I don't know what just happened there. But other than the perimeter guys, they also have different players like Nemias Queta, who has proven to be a very solid center in the NBA. Of course, he's got the physical profile and the athleticism. He's a great shot blocker, lob finisher, and he's just that kind of archetype of player. And he's just a massive guy. So he can really do anything within 3 feet of the basket, pretty efficiently. So the Bucks are going to have to watch out for his rebounding prowess, not letting him get to the offensive boards, because if they do so, if they kind of let him get on a roll and he ends up grabbing 6 offensive boards in this game coming up, then it is not going to look good for the Celtics. But something that I will say, maybe Doc going against this Celtics team with Peyton Pritchard shooting the lights out, or actually, I don't know if Peyton Pritchard is off to that hot of a start this season. Maybe I should just fact check real quick. No, actually, he's having a pretty down year in terms of 3-point shooting. But traditionally a guy in Peyton Pritchard who shoots the lights out, along with Derek White, Jalen Brown, guys that are just going to get a shot up without a moment's notice. Maybe the Bucks and Doc Rivers can take a page out of the Celtics book by, guess what, shooting more threes. This was a team that I pointed to, of course, when they made their 2024 title run, that they did it by living and dying by the three. And they would shoot 60 threes in a game. And if they knocked down 40 to 42% of those threes, it was a blowout win every time. Sure, there were games where they hit 20% of those threes and it was a blowout loss. But more often than not, with the shooting personnel that they had in 2024 specifically, they were able to get the job done. And I feel like it's not a stretch to say that the Bucks at least have the shooting personnel to potentially pull off the same kind of, not maybe the same kind of run, because the defensive element and rebounding element of this team is just, it's completely lacking, especially with Giannis off the floor. But you have Giannis, who could be argued as the best player in the NBA, and you have some of the best, like, I can't stress it enough, the absolute best three-point shooting personnel in the NBA. The the reality of the Bucks not being able to make something of this is just already mind-blowing, and I can't even begin to describe how infuriating it is. But coming up against the Celtics, maybe they can use this as an opportunity to realize their wrongdoings, or at least, kind of correct some of the issues that have been plaguing them so far this season. And of those issues, just shooting more threes has continued to be one of them for completely inexplicable reasons. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Bucks Latest, presented by the good people at FanArch. As always, I'm your host, Dean Simon, and before you go, please leave that like, leave a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button. Also, turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future Milwaukee Bucks updates. I will see you guys in the next one.